Hey homeschoolers, I'm Melissa Webb, former full-time classroom teacher and homeschool mom turned full-time business CEO and encourager to homeschool families everywhere. I am determined and dedicated to helping you and give you sound educational, practical tips and advice, at the same time making sure that you're enjoying the family journey that you are on. So if you are looking for a place to be encouraged and inspired, you have found the perfect podcast. Homeschooling is a work of heart is truly the perfect place to start. So welcome. Let's jump in. Well, hello, friend, and welcome back. Hey, it is November, and that means I am coming up to our next 5-for-5 video series that I host on a monthly basis and invite any homeschooling moms. Dads are invited too. So far, just moms show up. We talk in lifetime, virtually, about various topics. This month's topic is a good one. We're going to talk about how to help non-motivated learners. This is very common this time of year. Now, if you have not attended any of these live, remote, virtual events, I highly recommend that you check it out. I will link to our information page in the show notes so you can learn more and see what this is all about. But here's what I want you to know and what I think you will love. This is a time where we can get together as moms, trying to do our best and share what is working, what's not working, what we've tried, what is frustrating us, some of our big wins, and having that community is a game changer. I'm really hoping this little rundown today, it's a little sneak peek into what we'll be talking about this month, the non-motivated learners. And while it's not going to be as good as the real live event, which is taking place on November 22nd, it is still, I believe, going to be beneficial if you have a child who's been non-motivated, if your child's been resistant to any kind of learning. I'm going to go over some very practical and helpful ideas that have worked for me and hopefully will inspire you. So are you ready? Let's jump in and talk about our wonderful kiddos who sometimes really grow us just as much as we grow them. Agreed? Okay, so one of the things that I'm going to talk about first comes from my teaching experience, having been a classroom teacher for many, many years. If I had a child in my class I saw was lacking motivation on any given day, especially a child who sometimes was pretty motivated to learn, but I saw that there was a real resistance, I would always start with the very basic needs of any person to be motivated to learn. And these basic needs are as simple as making sure that our children are not dehydrated, they're not hungry, they're not tired, or maybe they're not emotionally being distracted. So I'll just give you an example from classroom experience where I would have children, and this happened on many occasions. I could just see a child was just not motivated. And so a simple conversation, because this would often be seen right off the bat, first thing in the morning, we're starting our journal writing and the kids are coming in and there's just a real lack of motivation. So I would just go kneel down by the kiddo and just say, hey, were you able to have breakfast this morning? That one question could be the game changer. No, we were really busy and we were running late, so I haven't eaten anything. I'd be like, hey, that's okay. I've got a granola bar or a protein bar. I would always have something healthy for a child to snack on in case breakfast was missed. And again, we might think that, well, that's not really a big deal. They should be able to still be motivated. Nope, those are the basic needs. Same thing with dehydration. Hydrating our bodies is really important because water makes up a great portion of our body and our brain. So just saying here, and I would have like those little mini water bottles. I'd be like, here, just drink this first. Now, other things that children would tell me, I didn't sleep well last night. Maybe they just weren't feeling really great. So they were just a little bit tired. So I would even tell them, let's do some extra breathing techniques today because we need more oxygen in that brain of theirs. And then the last one, emotional distraction, is also something that must be considered. If a child would tell me that mommy and daddy were fighting and the child could hear it throughout the night, or first thing in the morning, they're walking out the door and there's a big fight going on. An emotional distraction can absolutely keep a child from not being motivated. While it seems very basic to start with these 4 things, dehydration, hunger, tiredness, and emotional distractions, they're the easiest to fix in the short term here, and they also open up a window of understanding. The problem is not that your child isn't feeling motivated. That is not a terribly big issue. It's how we approach it in solving it, and that we're not coming at it from a space of criticism or anger or frustration. That's not going to help anybody. So be patient and be compassionate and start with the very basic needs. Because honestly, if it's one of those, I'm always like, hey, I can help you here. Okay, if all of those things are going just fine and you still see that your child is really lacking some motivation, I'm going to tell you 3 proven strategies that have worked for me as a teacher and also as a homeschool mom. I homeschooled 2 of our 3 boys for multiple years throughout elementary and middle school ages. And so I have hands-on practice here as well as a classroom teacher. One of the most beautiful things about homeschooling is the freedom you have to do these. In a lot of situations as a classroom teacher, my hands were tied, and there were certain things I could and I could not do to accommodate every single child in a class of 36 students. But as a homeschool mom, and that's where I'm really focusing today, I can tell you these 3 things work, and they do require some time and some conversation. No, they cannot be applied to every single situation, but I think they can be applied to many situations. Let's go through all 3 of them. I'm going to call them out now, and then I'll go into each one in a little more detail. So 1, incorporate your child's choosing of things, topics, location of where they might want to learn. We'll get into that. Number 2, connecting learning to real life. That's important too, because a lot of times students don't see the relevance. They're like, what's the point? So when we can connect to real life, you're going to engage them more. And number 3, celebrate their progress, even in short increments. It's important. Let's go into all of these. So I'm going to start with incorporating student choice. What do I mean by that? This is important. At the start of a new month, or maybe at the start of a new semester, you want to sit down and have a student-teacher conversation. You can do that as a homeschool parent. You want to ask your kids, so what do you hope to learn this year? Is there anything in science? Pull out your science book. Go through the chapters ahead of time. Let them see. Pay attention, and you need to be taking some notes. What lights your kids up? There are 3 kinds of science. There's life science, there's earth science, and then there's physical science. As you go through a book, pay attention to what is exciting them and make note of that. Because while not everything's going to excite them, you can go deeper on the things that do. So I remember doing this with Derek. We sat down and we were just talking about coming home to homeschool. And here's the thing. I was a classroom teacher. I support classroom learning. Good classroom teachers can be game changers. They can change your child in such a positive way, right? If you've had that kind of teacher or your child has had that kind of teacher, you know what I'm talking about. These are amazing human beings put on this planet to impact our children's lives in beautiful ways. I am not against classroom learning and classroom teaching. In fact, I teach still, not in a classroom. I teach virtually. I teach writing to students. So I love that I can still be a teacher that families choose to positively impact their child's life. It's wonderful. That's what we want to be doing. Now, I never planned on homeschooling. Truth bomb. I never thought I was going to be a homeschool mom. And I always said the only time I would ever homeschool is when I felt there was a time and place when I could do a better job than the classroom teachers were able to do. And we had gone from having class sizes of 25 students that my kids were enjoying and thriving. And the state changed things. And all of a sudden, Derek in third grade had 36 students. And he was with a teacher who was just trying her darndest to manage a class that size with third graders. She wasn't happy, and it was coming across. And she would tell the kids, you just have to stay in your seat. You cannot move. Just stay in your seat. And Derek, who loved learning, suddenly didn't want to go to school, had stomach aches in the morning. And when we would talk about, hey, what's going on? And I would even suggest some things, he would come home and say, my teacher won't let me do that, or I'm not allowed to do that. And it would be something like, well, go get a new book when you finish that book. So I scheduled a meeting and talked with that teacher, and she said, I cannot let these kids leave their seats. It drives me crazy when they're out and about. So no, I've just told him, just read what's in your desk. And so on this one particular day, Derek had pulled out his science book. And when I picked him up, and he said, there's so much in our science book, Mom, and we've not done any of it. And I said, like what? And he said, well, there's this really cool picture of a flying squirrel. And I really would love to learn about squirrels. And so again, I could just see that this poor teacher who was overwhelmed wasn't going to get to all of the things that her kids wanted her to get to. And so when I sat Derek down and said, what would you like to learn now that you're going to be coming home? He said, I want to learn about squirrels. And so we did a whole unit on squirrels. And it was fantastic. And we tied it into all kinds of things. And all of a sudden, there was this very motivated child who wanted to learn about something that interested him. So you need to ask these questions of your child. You need to look through your history books. You need to take a look. If you're with a charter school, a lot of times they offer all kinds of field trips. Take a look at what's being offered. See what you can sign up for. If it fills up, go do it on your own. Get your kids motivated and write that down and have that list somewhere where your kids can see what month they're going to be doing those things. When they're motivated and they're happy about upcoming things, you're going to see that that spills over into other areas. The other thing that I want to mention is that where they want to learn, maybe they don't like to sit in a chair. Maybe they want to sit on a couch. Maybe they want to sit outside. Maybe it's about the time of day that they want to do the certain topics. Maybe they're not ready to write first thing in the morning, or they're not ready for math first thing in the morning. All of this is going to come with conversations where you allow them to feel empowered because you're giving them some choice. Maybe they want to do some things on the computer, but some things they want to do in a notebook. Maybe they want to write their math problems on a whiteboard. Let them choose, and you will see motivation increase in so many ways. The second thing I want to talk about is how you can connect learning to real life. This is important too. Let's say that you're doing a math unit and you're learning about averages and statistics even, maybe mean and mode. Do you remember all of these terminologies? And it just so happens your child loves baseball and spring is coming. Hey, why not schedule, especially if you have a local, like out here for us, we have the Lake Elsinore Storm baseball team. It's a minor league team, super fun, inexpensive to go to a game. Go to a game and start taking a look at statistics, start learning about the math behind baseball. If you have a child who loves baseball, you're going to see some motivation when you're like, hey, we're going to talk about this and we're going to relate it to batting averages and follow it for the whole season. That's going to be great practice throughout. There was a time when we were going to start learning about gears in science. We found some old bicycles that were run down. Somebody just left them on the side. We had this idea to fix them up and to donate them. We had to learn about how chains and gears and all the parts of the bicycle worked. So we tied that into a project, a real life project, and then donated a couple of those bikes. We would go on field trips. I remember a really great colonial one where our boys actually got to use bow and arrows. And we talked about, like, if you were going to eat, you needed to catch a rabbit. You maybe did set up a trap, or you had to be really good at a bow and arrow. And they got to use the bows and arrows and see how challenging that could be. Again, it tied into history beautifully and just made for some very fun learning. And let me tell you, they were very motivated to learn about colonial things, so that later when we watched a video or read a book, we could tie back to a real life experience. These things work, so find some ways to take what they're learning and connect it to real life. The third thing I wanted to mention, and we'll be talking about in our group 5 for 5 event. And by the way, I will tell you, here I am just rambling on and on and on. That's not what our 5 for 5 event looks like. We talk throughout. People share, oh, I've done that, or I tried that, that didn't work. And they share ideas of things that worked for them. So if you want more ideas like this, if you're like, oh, wait, I'm feeling inspired, that's fabulous. I'm really glad you are. But I will tell you that the live events are even better. Okay, the third thing to help motivate children is important, and that's celebration. If students are doing work and they're never feeling recognized for what they're doing, they will not feel as motivated. They just won't. There's so much psychology behind this. Let me tell you, children need, and adults too, positive reinforcement, physical recognition, and intrinsic motivation. Yes, we want them to feel good that they did it for themselves, but that typically comes after some positive reinforcement. So let's say you've been working on mastering multiplication facts. If you haven't done the multiplication Sunday activity where you color in a part of a sundae, an ice cream sundae, and once it's all colored in, you guys make sundaes. It's so fun, and you could apply that to other things. Maybe you have a child who loves awards. You can use Canva and create achievement awards. Let's say somebody has memorized their states and their capitals. Have a special binder that has the plastic sleeves and fill it with awards. If your child likes that sort of thing, or sticker charts, not every child loves that, but if your child does, then absolutely, and you don't have to do it for all your kids, just do it for the one that loves being able to have something tangible like that. Physical recognition is super important. A hug, a high five, words of encouragement. But again, to say things like, I'm really proud of you, that's great. But you're making their success reliant on how you feel about them. That's not as intrinsic as, oh my goodness, look at what you did. You did that. You did that. How do you feel having accomplished that? That type of conversation will build more of the intrinsic things, okay? So those are the three that I wanted to touch base on. After you've looked over the basic needs, as we talked about, right? Thirst and hunger and physical wellness, emotional wellness, then consider student choice, connecting learning to real life, and finding fun ways to celebrate. That's super important. But so is this. And this is where I know we're going to spend a good amount of time in our event. You must remember to control what you can control. Take some time and consider what you make it mean when your child is resisting the learning, because managing your mindset is really critical. Here's a thought I want to offer you. If you've been struggling, I hear you, I feel you, you're not alone. We all do. We all do from time to time. It's normal, totally normal. But here's a thought I want to offer you. Feel free to take it. I control my emotions, not my child's actions. I think that's a powerful thought. If you have a child who's lacking motivation or resisting or fighting you, it is not a reflection on your worth or your skill ability or your lack of effort. It's not about you. It is really about them. Circumstances are completely neutral, and it's your thought about that circumstance that's really going to matter. So if you have a circumstance that your child is not completing a task that you've put in front of them, that's the circumstance. My child's not doing it. Then go ahead, check the basics for sure. See if you can apply the student choice, the connection to real life, celebrating, that sort of thing. Do all of those things. But then think on purpose. Here's what's happening. Your child is facing a challenge. And life offers all kinds of challenges for all of us. And here's what I want you to know. You can help guide your child. That's your job. It's your most important job. It's not that your child's mastering multiplication. Well, I think that's very important. It's getting your child to that point and facing the challenges that come to getting something done when we don't want to do it. And being curious and being compassionate with your child above all things. Not coming down on your child, not yelling, not screaming, not taking away privileges, but coming at this as, hey, I've been there, honey. I know what it's like to face a challenge and not want to do something. Give some real life examples from your experiences, and then be willing to guide your child. The goal here is to help your child problem solve, not criticize your child. I want you to teach your child to keep going and keep growing. But for your child to keep going and keep growing, it means you must be doing the same thing. So keep going and keep growing, my friend. And if you have not gotten involved in a more personal level through these events that we offer, by all means, come check it out. Right on. Well, thanks so much for tuning in and listening this week. Hey, if this was something that you found valuable, don't forget you want to subscribe or follow so that every time a new episode is dropped, you'll be the first to know. And hey, before you go, if you are looking to get some of this academic writing under your belt and outsourced so that it's one less thing freeing you up to enjoy more time with your family, hey, you're going to want to head over to writeonweb.com to see what kinds of resources and materials I have available for you. I will look forward to seeing you there, and I will look forward to seeing you here in our next episode. Right on.